Hi, this is Bob Roth, Managing Partner and Co-Founder of Cypress Home Care Solutions. Since 1994, we have been providing in-home supportive care services for our older adult population right here in Phoenix, Arizona. Since 2014, we've been bringing you a show on Money Radio called Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. In case you miss our show that airs every Friday at noon, you can catch it right here on our podcast called Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. So when you get a chance, listen in and enjoy the show. Good afternoon. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and it must be Friday, and indeed it is. We're coming at you from the Scottsdale Air Park Money Radio Studios, 1510 AM, 105.3 FM, and the World Wide Web, moneyradio1510.com. So I have, returning to my studio, I have Lihn. He is a member of the Lihn Law Group, and he was here 2.5 years ago. And he's got Jenny Krulowicz here with me. And I want to welcome the two of you guys to the show. And I really, for our audience's benefit and mine too, because you're with a new firm, would love for you to really describe your law practice and what areas you practice in. And then we'll do a deep dive in talking about what you guys are doing out there.
Awesome. Sounds like a plan, Bob. Thanks for having us. It's crazy. It's been 2.5 years. It seems like 9 months ago I was in here.
It does. It really does.
COVID's just kind of warped the time-space continuum moving forward. Yeah, well, thanks. It's good to be back. As you mentioned, I work at and own the Lihn Law Group. We are a small elder law, estate planning law firm here in the Phoenix area. Our main office is in Peoria. We help people with kind of the journey of life, and it's whether it's estate planning, different sort of elder care related things, probate, trust administration. We kind of go through it all on our website. And Jenny, who you mentioned, who is one of our newer members, she's been with us just about a year now. Bringing her on was sort of a piece of organic growth that we had, where we saw a need that I've observed for a long time. I saw it in my own family as my parents aged and eventually passed away. We have done the legal work for people for a long time, but we saw that in our elder care, elder law practice, there were just additional things people needed. There's no real quarterback out there. There's a lot of services, a lot of people who deliver the services well, but not anyone who can help overwhelmed families or families with little resources kind of put it all together and maximize someone's independence, someone's care. So Jenny, who is and I'll let her talk about her background, but is a licensed social worker who we brought on full-time at our office to sort of help us in sort of this organic growth of our practice, where we call it life care planning. So Jenny, I'll let you kind of talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Caleb. So my background is as a licensed social worker. 4 of our team members are also certified dementia practitioners.
I love that.
But I've worked for most of my career in geriatric care management and really have a passion for helping families and older adults, just meeting them where they're at and providing resources, support, and guidance for their journey, like Caleb said. So we wanted to create a holistic approach. Clients are already coming to our office for help with things like estate planning, looking at long-term care needs. So we're just offering them a little bit of extra layer of support in terms of navigating all of those things and having someone that can really oversee and kind of be, I like to call myself the ringleader of the circus, kind of bring it all together and just be kind of a sounding board for the family to be able to give them as needed support and resources as they're facing new challenges.
And I like how you use the word support, because these families a lot of times are going through this for the very first time, and they don't really know. And they don't know those resources that are available. And I look at you as somebody that's a support, a Sherpa, how to navigate through this myriad of options that are out there. And let's face it, I mean, nobody really plans for it, and it's usually a crisis.
Absolutely. I think, especially in our society, people just tend to kind of be very reactive. They wait for problems to happen. So our approach is really meant to help families look at what they can proactively do to plan ahead for any crises that might come up, so that when unfortunate circumstances do arise, they feel supported, and they have those things kind of already planned for, and they know kind of where to go from there. So.
Well, I give kudos to Caleb for seeing this opportunity and bringing you aboard, because having this is certainly so beneficial to the clients that you serve and the community that we serve at large. And Jenny, you really do get what it means to be part of the community. I know you haven't been here in the Valley very long, and it's amazing how many people you've had a chance to get to meet.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah, it's kind of like dipping my toe in the ocean, as I like to call it, of senior care resources out here, because there's just so much. But when it comes to individual families trying to navigate these things, more isn't always helpful. It's very overwhelming, actually, to figure out, who can I trust? Who should I rely on that's going to be a trusted, reliable, credible person to come into my home and help me?
And I want to emphasize a word you used there is trust, because that's the ultimate thing, that people don't know who they can trust. And, having that ability to trust the Lihn Law Group and know that, hey, we got you. We'll be able to help you through this journey and get you to the resources that you definitely need. I have a question. I know you probably remember our segments go really fast, so we're coming up on this end of the first segment, but you guys put on a symposium last year. I would love to know whose idea was that, and how did it go, and what was that all about? And I looked at your website. You've already got earmarked for the 2026 symposium too.
Yeah, we did a elder care and legal symposium, and it was fantastic. We'd actually done it once before in 2019. Smaller scale was our first one. We were raring to go for 2020, and then
COVID happened.
Yeah, so we sort of had to scrap those plans, and it just took a few years to kind of reassemble everything. And so we did it again last year, and it went almost absolutely perfect. It was it's an event designed for elder care professionals to help educate and provide resources, and we had continuing education credits for most there. And yeah, it's not coincidentally, it's on National Healthcare Decisions Day next year.
Not coincidentally.
Not coincidentally.
But I will tell you, you had some rock star people that attended. I mean, one that sat right in the same place that Jenny's sitting right now. You had Anna Burke, Dr. Burke, from Barrow Neurological Institute. You also had Chris Mays, the Attorney General there. I mean, impressive, guys. I'm serious. You really brought it out.
Yeah, it was a great lineup, and we feel some pressure to repeat for 2026, but it's going well, and we're excited.
Well, I'm going to put it out there, not for me, but if I can help you find somebody, let's talk about it, because let's face it, that's really helps you with the billing and bringing the people there for the symposium.
Absolutely, yeah, and you're a wealth of knowledge, so I will lean into that help.
Well, listen, you're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I've got the Lihn Law Group here. I got Caleb Lihn, and I got Jenny Krulowicz. We've got 3 more segments around. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and if you're just tuning in, the Lihn Law Group is here in the house. I got Caleb Lihn, I got Jenny Krulowicz, and we are talking estate planning, elder law care. These guys do it all. And when we left off in that first segment, we were talking about the 2025 and 2026 symposium. And Caleb, I love that you're doing this, because you're not doing it just for the Lihn Law Group. You're doing it for the community, and you're really helping educate the community by having these incredible guests like Dr. Anna Burke and Arizona Attorney General Chris Mays. I mean, you've really put a good lineup together, and I think that's purposeful and intentional, right?
Yeah, and I was gonna use the word you took it right out of my mouth, intentional. We were very intentional with it. We very deliberate, and I think you're right. We've actually we came up with this. We didn't invite the term, but we adopted it. Circle of care. That we're all in the circle of care together. in driving our efforts, our services, our specialties towards caring for people and families. And so everybody who was there at the symposium is in that circle of care. We're all looking towards the same goal, just from different viewpoints. And, we have a little like passport thing. We had a little kind of a silly gift basket that we'd give to someone, and we called it the Circle of Care Passport. We said, go around and meet with everybody here, because they could be resources that you could take back to what you do and help your clients with, and meet everybody, get all the stamped, and turn in your Circle of Care passport. But it's kind of a silly thing, but we mean it. The Circle of Care for us is a real thing, and that the symposium, was an extension of that.
And I know that you know this. I mean, our community really coalesces together. I mean, that's the thing I love about it. You and I talked about, before we started the show, some of my colleagues that run home care companies. We really are in competition. I mean, when you sit down and you think about Maricopa County, 4.6 million people live here, and over 1 million of them are 65 and older. There's a lot of business for all of us, and we do rely on each other to really help. Not just help in doing the care, but a lot of help in advocacy and work that we do down at the legislature, which is really, really important. And I know you get advocacy and how important that is. And you guys are doing a lot of work, obviously, in terms of planning for people's care, but you also are doing work as it relates to our Medicaid services, which is known here in the Valley as Access or All-Tax. You do a lot of work in that area too, right?
Yeah, on a day-to-day basis, we're living in that world every day for our clients, and we do some advocacy. Jenny and I and some others from our office recently were down at the legislature, state level, meeting with legislatures, because we're having some issues with All-Tax, and
so are we.
Yeah, we're back in the club together, and it's just become a huge issue. And I had again Jenny and I and two others from our office. We had arranged a Zoom last week with General Counsel of Access, the Deputy Director of Access, and two other attorneys from Access. And I just kind of, in a really respectful, nice way, kind of aired out my laundry list of grievances. And I said, I need us to get back to how it was in the old days, when you guys followed the rules, when the rules were clearly articulated and clearly implemented. And they kind of, talked about the resources and how they're having difficulties. And I didn't accuse anybody of any sort of ill will, but my job or my perspective there was to advocate for our clients. And
100%. We're
going to continue to do that.
Yeah, so for our listeners, Access is Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System. And, I think it's exactly what you and I are dealing with, is they're trying to control costs when, we really need these benefits for the people that we're serving and for the community at large. And it's been a real battle for us. I mean, we're dealing with the state with a budget issue, and I testified before our local legislators on behalf of Contexture, and I know you guys are familiar with them. They are the repository for the Arizona Registry for Healthcare Advanced Directives, and I was pleased to do that on their behalf, and I got a really nice note from the leadership there. They were able to secure $2 million, which they needed.
Good.
We were going to try to get $1.5 million. We were going to settle for that. We were lucky to get $2 million, but I got to tell you, I'm an All-Tax provider on the home and community-based service side, and we got zero. We got nothing, and that's been really, really hard for me and my colleagues to make the most of it. But I love that you're doing advocacy work not just for your clients, but the community at large.
Yeah, we've got a case right now where, and I've never had this before in the, over a decade that I've been doing All-Tax work to help people get the long-term care services, where, and not to get too into the weeds, but when you have a married couple, the way that you sort of determine what assets the well spouse or the spouse staying at home can keep is through a community spouse resource determination, where there's a calculation. All-Tax looks at the finances and they give you this number. So we did that for a couple, got the number. We agreed with the number. We didn't necessarily agree how they got there, but we liked the number. It suited our clients. So we planned. We did some irrevocable organization of assets to help them qualify based on this in writing determination that the state gave us. We then, after that organization of assets was complete, we relied on that representation. We applied for All-Tax. They came back and said, human error the determination was wrong. It's really this. And it was to the detriment of our client.
Of course it was.
Because it rendered them ineligible. So we've appealed that, and we're actually taking it to the next level of appeal now at the Superior Court, and the media is involved. So we're going to keep pushing it because it was absolutely wrong. I mean, there's case law out there that says, there's a case against the Arizona Department of Revenue where they said, you owe this in taxes. Someone paid it, and they came back and said, actually, no, we made a mistake. You owe this. And there's just this concept of detrimental reliance, and it applies to the state. And so they can't set a pattern of being able to tell a married couple, oh, this is the number, this is your target number. And then in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, oh, sorry, we made a mistake. We're moving the target over here. That's not fair to people, especially when they're already in a healthcare crisis.
Wow. That's unbelievable. And I'm glad that there is a precedent in the case, and I know you guys will fight for your clients. But, I mean, it's really, really hard, and it's really hard in what we're dealing with. And, I will tell you that it is very confusing to apply for access or all tax. It's just a really hard thing to do. And I really, I'm imparting to our listeners, if you're thinking about doing that, I mean, I would engage a professional outfit like Lihn Law Group to help you do this, because you can't do this alone. And, the process takes a long time. And if you're waiting on this and you put it through and then you get a denial, then you're going to have to wait again as you resubmit. So you might just get it right the first time.
Yeah, you're just compounding the time. I was on a call with kind of a veteran all-tax caseworker the other day, and I of all my years, I didn't know this. They have what they call like a problem list of professionals who help people apply for all-tax. And I said, well, I knew I wasn't on it, but I said, I'm not on the list, am I? And they said, oh, no. It's not a lot of law firms on the list. It's non-lawyer Medicaid planners. And they said we have one who's really an offender who charges people to apply but doesn't know what they're doing. And they said this one outfit, I don't even know the name, applied for someone 5 times. Each time was denied and did nothing to change it. Just kept like the definition of insanity.
Yeah.
Just kept resubmitting the same application after 5 denials, and that doesn't benefit anyone.
Right. You know what's interesting is I think there's a misnomer out there. In order to qualify, you have to get bankrupt. Can you talk about that? Because I think a lot of people are like, I don't want to go down this path because my wife is not going to have any funds once I'm gone, or my husband's not going to have any funds and the house and way to live. I know that we only have a little bit of time here before we get at halftime, but if you could give me like an overview of why this is not something that needs to be done.
Yeah, and it's a super huge misconception, and people still hear that. They can be out touring a facility that takes all tax, and they'll say, oh, just spend all your money on us till you're bankrupt, and then we'll help you get on this benefit. You could do that, but that's not the smart, wise way. There are rules in place, and these are federal and state laws. There's exceptions to the rules and exceptions to those exceptions. But if you know those rules and those exceptions, there are legal pathways to organize assets to not go bankrupt. They're designed to prevent, especially married couples, from going bankrupt. And so these powerful benefits, whether it's working with Cypress Home Care to get home care services through all-tax, or somebody needs a higher level of care at assisted living or skilled nursing, there are benefits to help pay for that, to protect the family, where they're not going to take your house. They're not going to make you clean out, your financial assets. And that's the powerful thing about planning. And we can do it proactively. We can do it in a crisis. But we have to have the opportunity to work with someone to be able to help them plan. And I just hate hearing stories where someone's like, oh, we had this much money and we spent it to nothing, and now we're on the benefits. And
you can't unwind that.
No, I have a woman who we talked to really quickly, who her financial planner told her, to get on, her husband has Lewy body dementia. They live up in the Prescott area where there's not as much resources. And her financial planner, who I don't know, said, oh, you just need to spend all your money, get down to zero, then you can get this care for him. So she put all this money into like stuff they didn't need, like roofing, like fixing up the house, like buying a horse trailer, like all this stuff. They have like $12,000 left in their bank account. They're in their 60s for the rest of their life. They don't make income. Then they came to us. That's the first time I met them.
Wow.
And that, I mean, that financial planner just did a monstrous misservice or disservice to this family, telling them spend all your money.
Right.
I had to tell her. I said, hindsight's 2020, but we could have kept all this money in your pot and got him on these benefits. And that's the goal. There's two goals: make sure someone's getting the care they need, 1A, and then 1B or 2, preserve as much of the family's assets as we can. Period.
And that's why you need to consult with a professional, and you can't do this alone. And Caleb, I think that's a great picture to paint for our listeners, to really realize that you don't have to get bankrupt. You don't have to spend all your money, spend down your money so that you can qualify. And, the last thing I want to say is, people think Altex is free, but, once the person does pass, they do claw back money from that estate. So it isn't quite really free.
So there's no such thing as a free lunch. They will come back to your estate looking for a payback.
You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. I got the Lihn Law Group here, halftime here at Health Futures. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth, and we're in our second half here. If you're just tuning in, the Lihn Law Group is in the house. I got Caleb Lihn here with me, and I got Jenny Krulowicz here with me as well. If you missed that first half, you got to go up to our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the media button right below its radio show. You'll catch this one and many, many more. It's hard to believe, but doing this for 13 years, Caleb. Wow.
That's insane. And you don't look a day over 40, so I don't know how the math works out.
I know, right? I wish. I wish. In that first half, we really talked about a lot of different things. We talked about your law practice. We talked about the symposium that you're putting on, not just for your clients, but for the community at large. And we talked about access, Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, Altex, and how to apply for Altex, and the challenges that we run into as a community. But I really want to focus this third segment really talking about estate planning, and that's a big part of your practice. And that old adage, John Wooden adage, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And there's so many that are out there that do this. And it happens to famous people. It's crazy. Really, whether it be Wayne Huizenga, whether it be George Steinbrenner, whether it be Prince, the list goes on. The latest one is Gene Hackman, and I was just reading this the other day. He had left his entire estate to his wife, who actually died 8 days before him. And I'm sure this thing is hanging in probate, and they're trying to figure out what to do with that estate and how grueling this is for families. And you are on the front line of this, and would love for you to talk to me, but also our listeners, the importance of planning and really putting an estate plan together, and really thinking about a second to die, right? Because they didn't think about what happens if she died, who is going to be getting the money or the estate.
Yeah, in that case, Gene Hackman's case is already in litigation. It's already in court. Wow. And it's unfortunate. One of the rare things that, I shouldn't say rare, but one of the unique things that our firm does for a planning firm is that we also do litigation. We don't do a ton of it. We're selective about what we do, but we help people in, will and trust disputes and financial exploitation matters and disputed guardianship and conservatorships. And almost all of those cases come from bad planning or just failing to plan, period. And so what John Wooden said was right, and it wasn't dealing with estate planning, but it overlays on planning for your life and your maybe demise and your passing just as well. Because if you don't plan, and it's not fun to talk about, really, it's not fun to think about, what's going to happen if I'm so unhealthy I can't make my own decisions, or what's going to happen when I pass. It's not fun to sit down on a Tuesday afternoon and go through that. But so it's very easy to procrastinate. Everybody does it, but it's so important to do. I saw something the other day that talked about, I'm way off track here, but it talked about therapy. And so going to therapy, if you feel you can benefit from it, is a gift to your family. And that's what I say about estate planning, is it's a gift to your family.
100%.
It's just so much can go wrong if you don't do it. And not planning, you're turning it over to the state, and the state's going to say, here's how we've decided you've planned. And there's just so many bad outcomes, and there's so much to think about that you have to find someone who can help guide you through the planning process and just be proactive about it.
And we're here talking about estate planning, but it encompasses everything, like advanced directives. I've had Dr. Kevin Hazelhorst here on the show, and he was an ER doctor for almost 40 years over at Arrowhead Hospital, and he would see people come in and they hadn't made their advanced directives and they couldn't speak for themselves. And even if they could speak for themselves, they didn't know what to do, and they didn't have these conversations. And these are conversations that we need to have now while we're healthy, and we need to have them not just with our professionals. It starts with our families. And then it goes to the professionals to have them obviously memorialized so that we have those. And I shared with you off the air about Contexture and working with those guys, that gives us a vehicle with the Arizona Advanced Directive Registry to push that stuff up on the web so that it's accessible to people. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's important. I don't let anybody leave my office who's working with us to do an estate plan without probably 4 or 5 different separate legal components, each of which deal just with healthcare decisions, end-of-life decisions. We want people to think about and document what they want to happen when they pass. Do they want to be cremated? Do they want to be buried? What do they want done with their cremains? And a lot of people have thought about it. A lot of people haven't, but it sparks conversations, and we've helped people kind of say, oh, this is how I want to envision what happens when I'm gone. And so it's very important to plan for those things. And I tell people, a lot of people think you hear the term estate planning, it's a little ambiguous.
Right.
It's a little vague. And so some people's first thought is, oh, that's just when I die. That's just everything that happens after I die. And that's true. That encompasses it. But an equally important part is all that stuff that happens before we die. If we get sick, we're living longer generally. Dementia's happening at a higher rate. It's I think the last Genworth statistic I saw was like 65% of us are going to need some sort of long-term care.
100%,
so
yeah.
Why not plan for that now? What that's going to look like? How is it going to be paid for? What resources are we going to use? Who's going to help me make my decisions? If I decline to a certain point, what do I want to happen to me? And then who's going to be, what's my roster of people who are going to help make sure what I want is what actually happens and advocates for me? And none of that can happen if you don't sit down to do a plan.
Right. And, I love how you said estate planning, is all-encompassing. It's not just estate planning. And, we think of powers of attorney. And, I know enough to be dangerous. But in our state, there's such a thing. And you mentioned about the higher incidence of dementia. There's such a thing as mental power of attorney. And we're one of the few states that actually has that. And you can have one of those power of attorneys in place so that if someone becomes incapacitated to make a decision, you can then move in to be, that family member can have those powers in place, right?
Absolutely. I want everybody to have, people hear mental health care power of attorney, and some people just get turned off like, oh, it doesn't apply to me. I don't have any mental health issues. And so we explain and educate to people. It goes beyond that. If those are relevant to you, then it covers that, but also
right.
Dementia. And I had a case years ago, a woman who had powers of attorney from out of state, in a state that didn't have the mental health care piece. She fell and broke her hip, and what was very mild, almost asymptomatic dementia became very bad all of a sudden because of the acute injury. She was
and probably anesthesia.
Yeah.
Anesthesia is a big part of that.
Yeah.
But please carry on.
Oh, no. So she was in the hospital, and her adult sister, who was her agent on the healthcare power of attorney from out of state, was able to do everything with the broken hip. But then when it came time to talking to the psychiatrist and figuring out how to get this dementia under control, they wouldn't tell her anything. She had no ability to make decisions. It was paralyzed.
Wow.
The hospital said, you have to go get an emergency mental health guardianship. And that's how I met them. And that went on, took stress, took time, we had to wait for the court. And all that could have been avoided if you had a mental health care power of attorney. So that's the thing is you don't need the plan necessarily when you do it. It may not be applicable at the moment, but having that plan is going to protect you. And down the road, if you do have dementia, you've got that piece there and can be cared for in the right way.
We have about 45 seconds before we end the segment. remember, they go really fast.
They do.
So there was one that I want you to touch on, and if we don't finish, we can finish it in the fourth segment. Pets. What do we do with our pets? People don't think about who's going to care for the pets. Do you put that into the plans?
Absolutely. I mean, that's hugely important, and we have so many clients whose pets are just the most special thing to them, and they're children to them in a lot of ways. And so
children to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a term. The term of art for it is called a pet trust. It sounds kind of silly, but it's really just building in provisions to a trust to make sure that your wishes regarding your furry loved ones or scaled loved ones are cared for. Who's going to care for them? What the plan is? Who you can even, we've been as specific as what kind of food they eat, who the vet is, what happens if you can't care for them anymore, like what specific shelter should this pet go to? And we've done it for horses, birds, dogs, cats, everything.
You ever have anyone leave all their money to their pets?
Not all of their money, but I've had people leave more money to their pets than I thought was reasonable. Yeah.
It always baffles me, but I've heard stories. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you hear the music. We got the fourth segment coming up. I want to talk a little bit about maybe special needs trusts. I believe you guys do those, and you can talk a little bit about that. And then I want you to talk about, what do you see for the future? I mean, it's hard to believe. You got the 2026 symposium out there already, and we're almost 2/3 of the way through 2025. That just blows me away. We got a little Marshall Tucker taking us out. You're listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. The Lihn Law Group is here in the house. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. You're listening to Health Futures Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. We're in our fourth segment here. If you're just tuning in, the Caleb Law Group is here in the house. I've got, actually I said the Caleb Lihn Law Group. I got Caleb Lihn here in the house, and I got Jenny Krulowicz here as well. We teed up the segment to talk about special needs trusts. And, most of our listeners don't really know what that means. And I kind of do, but I don't want to butcher that. I want you, Caleb, to at least explain, what is a special needs trust? Why would someone put one of those in place? And what does that look like?
Yeah, a special needs trust is just a legal mechanism that fits within the realm of estate planning for the right folks. It's meant to protect, guide, and care for someone's loved one that has a disability, or whether it's from a medical event, whether it's from a congenital disability that they were born with, or sometimes people are in an unfortunate accident or trauma that results in disabilities. A lot of folks that have disabilities, whether it's developmental from birth or childhood or later acquired in life, they need help, and they need government benefits to support them. And it could be financially, could be for care purposes, but a lot of those benefits, Bob, they are carry with them eligibility requirements, a lot of which are financial. And so it's important to avoid a scenario where somebody who has a disability, who either needs government benefits now or might in the future, that we protect that eligibility, that we preserve that, but also make sure that we're providing for that loved one in the way that we want to. And so this old, antiquated approach used to be, I say it's old and antiquated, but someone walked into my office the other day who got this advice: write your disabled child out, leave everything to other relatives, they'll take care of it. And they might, but they don't have any obligation to.
Right.
It's just a recipe for problems. So a special needs trust is just a mechanism that we can build into an estate plan to leave the assets that you might want to that loved one, but also simultaneously preserve their eligibility for government benefits now or in the future. So it kind of covers the best of both worlds in an unfortunate scenario.
I know that the Lihn Law Group has been involved in a lot of causes here in the community, and I know that you've done some work with special needs organizations. And, I can't help but when I think about special needs trusts, I think about some of my friends that have children that are autistic. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, something that every parent that has an autistic child should really be thinking about, putting together a special needs trust. And the hardest thing is knowing that, you're going to outlive your child is going to outlive you with a disability, and you don't want to really put that on the children without having the guidance and the direction of a special needs trust.
Right, absolutely. And if there's a fix to almost everything in the world, but if you have a child, whether it's autism or Down syndrome or some other unfortunate diagnosis, and you don't plan ahead, you don't put together a special needs trust, and then you leave that child money directly, and they need benefits, there's a chance the state is going to have a claim to their assets later because of the way things would work.
Right.
If you plan ahead and do a special needs trust for your loved one, it can be set up to sort of box out or prevent the government from ever getting access to those funds. So you're sort of adding layers of protection by planning ahead and creating that special needs trust for your loved one. It's really it's not the best language, but it's a no-brainer. I mean, you have to, if you have someone who, my daughter was born with a pretty significant congenital heart defect and had 3 open heart surgeries by the age of 3. I don't know for sure that she's going to need government benefits. Her diagnosis is such that she automatically qualifies for Social Security disability when she turns 18. But she's doing pretty good, so she might be able to work. We expect her to have a full life. But I've put a special needs trust together for her just in case.
Right.
It's just part of the planning.
Smart.
Yeah.
Really, really smart. So we haven't heard from Jenny in a little while. And Jenny Krulowicz is doing an amazing job of getting out there in the community. And not only have you connected with resources like home care, but you're actually the face to the Lihn Law Group with a lot of the clients. Can you describe to us some of the work that you're doing?
Absolutely, Bob. So we're doing a lot of work with individuals to really try to promote their independence and increase their quality of life. So individuals come to us a lot of times for planning, not really thinking about the holistic approach. They don't know, what a life care plan is. So we help families understand, here are some other things, some other resources, some other supports that exist. And it all starts with just learning about the client. So we start with an in-home assessment to really get a sense of the individual's environment. What are the things that they're struggling with every day? Walk me through your daily routine. So we're getting a sense, too, by that assessment of kind of where individuals are at in terms of qualifying for long-term care benefits. And where gaps might be in their care so that we can provide a set of recommendations for those families and really help guide them towards resources and community partners in our circle of care that we mentioned before that are trusted people that can help in those situations to fit whatever the need might be, whether it's a few hours of home care, maybe somebody helping with meal preparation or home delivered meals, transportation, or even finding a higher level of care in a senior living community. So we work with a lot of community partners. We also have a lot of situations that have just been really wonderful, kind of organic growth out of this program. And one of those situations is a story about a family that we're working with out in Mesa. The individual lives in assisted living, and his wife contacted us because she's having all kinds of issues with figuring out kind of how to work successfully with the community. Even though she's paying out of pocket for a high level of care, it seems like not all of the care is being provided. They're not always getting the things that they need. There have been ongoing issues with urinary tract infections. So what we did in that situation is start off with a care plan meeting where we brought together the health and wellness director, the executive director, and the family to really sit down and go through the care plan and try to identify any gaps. And unexpectedly, we learned through some of the conversations that we were having in that meeting that the community did not have a process in place for tracking, lab work that was leaving the building. So,
Wow.
So we were able to actually, unexpectedly help the community with developing a new procedure to make sure that those things were being tracked and so that families can have more sense of continuity with care, because that is a big issue, I think, with our medical system, is just a real lack of continuity in care.
100%. So we have a little under a minute left. Is there a question I haven't asked, a thought that you want to leave our listeners as we get ready to say goodbye? Caleb, we're not going to wait 2.5 years next time. We're going to get you back here in 2026. We'll probably hype up the symposium and get you guys a really good turnout. But is there any last minute thoughts or any questions that we haven't asked?
You know, you have done an amazing job of squeezing in perfect questions to cover a variety of topics. And I very rarely say I'm speechless, especially as a lawyer, but I can't think of anything important to cover that we haven't covered. What about you, Jenny?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, listen, any great plans for this weekend? I mean, it is August 1st. It's going to be 114 degrees on Saturday and on Sunday. I would imagine pool time is probably in the works.
I was going to say largely try to stay indoors, but yeah, some peppered in pool time, yeah, absolutely.
Well, listen, I will tell you, Caleb and Jenny, it was so great to have you guys in my studio here today. Make it a great day. Have a great weekend, and we'll be back next Friday.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 105.3 FM.